Hi, and welcome to Twin Peaks Traditions. My name's Sarah, and I live on a small ranch in northern Nevada. This is the ranch that I grew up on, where I am raising my 3 children, and this is a new platform. In the last few years, I've really developed this passion to direct our family that is a very modern family and really able to kind of incorporate those two things together. I came from a family, my parents actually lived off-grid when I was born, up in the mountains where they had to snowshoe in, and then again built a homestead that I eventually, with my husband, bought into. And we all co-own this property now. And so I love my electricity. I love my propane stove. I have a washing machine, like all of those things. I have a coffee maker. It is definitely not off-grid like it was before. We have all the modern conveniences. We still garden, and we have our horses, and we have our chickens, and we have a lot of like an outdoor lifestyle. I really, really like getting back to eating more whole foods, to eating organically, to growing my garden, animal husbandry, all of those things that entails. Today, I am talking to you about what I'm growing in my garden. I often say that gardening is my therapy. I love gardening. It is where I find so much peace and joy and just feel so fulfilled there. And so every year I have a lot of people that are asking me, what are you growing this year? How are you growing things? What new things are you doing? And so I just figured right now, before I can actually get out into the garden, get my hands in the dirt and start planting things, this is the time that gardening starts for me. What is Sarah growing in her garden this year? I generally start dreaming about it in December. Well, really, after my first frost in October, I guess I do. Gardening and dreaming and thinking and creating starts very early. I generally get my seed catalogs in December. Today's not going to be an exhaustive, like every single solitary thing that I'm growing, but I really am going to show you the varieties that I really, really enjoy, the ones that I enjoy a particular type of plant, but I don't really stick to a certain variety, why I grow the things that I grow. I really hope it inspires you for your 2021 garden. In December, I generally start getting my seed catalogs. I have a large variety of seed catalogs that I get. They're sitting over there. I probably have 10 plus different companies that send me their seed catalogs, but there's 3 catalogs that I use the majority of the time that I wanted to tell you guys about, the ones that I've been buying from for a long time, where I find really work well in my climate. The first one is the one that I started growing from when I started getting more serious about gardening, and not just buying just the seed packets at the big box stores, and I wanted to get a little bit more variety in my garden. And this one's High Mowing Organic Seeds. All the seeds in this are organic. I really just love this one. So much variety. It's very inspirational for me. I usually always order something. This next one is one that I started ordering from last year. It's called Territorial Seed Company. I really love this one. The reason I love this one is that a lot of their varieties are for people that are in colder climates, people that live like kind of in the north part of the United States. The other thing I love about this one is their seed packets, as you're gonna see, are beautiful. They're just works of art. Inside the actual catalog is just beautiful the way that they laid it out. So it just inspires me to grow really beautiful things. The last one I love because of its variety, because it's really offering very interesting things, is Baker Creek Heirloom Seed Company. This one, if you are in the gardening and especially vegetable gardening world, I'm sure you've heard about Baker Creek. I love them. They inspire me to grow interesting things that I've never seen in the supermarket before. And so this is a really great one. What really inspires me is to be growing things that I can't find in my commercial grocery stores all the time. If I am taking the time to prepare the beds and irrigate them, use my homemade compost, bring these plants along, I want something beautiful and I want something delicious that's coming from it that I can't just get from my regular grocery store. So a lot of these varieties, you're gonna see that they're things that maybe you haven't seen before. And I really like the idea when people come and we share from our garden and them saying, I've never seen a purple green bean before, and I love that. Tomatoes are probably one of my favorite things to grow in my garden. They do really well in my area because it's not really humid. I don't deal with a lot of disease. I just love them. My kids love them. We eat them fresh. I can them. We slice them and just eat them with like salt and pepper and a little vinegar on top. Some of the some of the smaller varieties of tomatoes that I'm growing this year, the cherry tomatoes. This one I grew last year. It did not do well in my garden. That's why I was only able to harvest enough seeds. I was able to try a couple of them, but they are called Napa Chardonnay Blush. They are delicious. They're like a really pale yellow, almost white, and they are so good. If you don't like an acidic tomato, you would really like these. They're doing Sun Golds this year, really great ones. This one is called Candyland Red. It's a new one for me. It's a currant tomato, meaning it's even smaller than a cherry tomato. So they're called Candyland Reds. Sweetie cherry tomatoes, I just feel like are very prolific and my kids can eat them by the handfuls. So these will grow a lot. Another one that I grew last year that I think the flavor is pretty good, but the beauty of them is unbelievable. They're called Brad's Atomic Grape. They are really good. They have a little bit of a thicker skin, but they are sweet, but they are so beautiful. Well, these ones will always have a place in my garden for the flavor, but especially for the beauty of them. Last year I found my most favorite tomato that I have ever grown in all of my gardening years. And it is called a Dr. Witchie's or Wychees, I don't know how to say his name, yellow tomato. This tomato is amazing. We had tomatoes that were close or over 2 pounds. They were huge. They were juicy. The flavor was delicious. This was the favorite out of the garden last year. There's another variety that's very similar to it called Kellogg's Breakfast. I've never done those, but if you can't find Dr. Witchie's, I would suggest maybe trying to find those. They were easy to grow and humongous. So definitely I would suggest this one for sure. Dr. Witchie's will always have a very, very prominent place in my garden because I just love them. Another variety that I really, really like is Paul Robeson. These ones are a medium-sized tomato. They're kind of like a brownish red, like a brick red, and they're really smoky. These are really, really good. Paul Robeson is another one of my favorites. Another one that is always going to be in my garden that I really like is just a red slicer is the Brandywine tomato. They're just superb. They're delicious. I always have Brandywine. They're nice and big and really, really juicy. I also grow paste tomatoes. The difference between a paste and like maybe a big slicer, paste tomatoes are meatier. They have less juice, less seeds, and they just have a lot more of that like tomato meat in them. They're really great for sauces, for salsas, those kind of things. So I always make sure that I grow them. I tend at the end of the season to always feel like I haven't grown enough paste tomatoes. This year when I planned my garden out, I definitely allowed for more space for paste tomatoes. They are good just eaten right off of the vine, but they really do shine in the like sauce world. A few of the ones that I've grown before is San Manzano. I always grow this one. It's nice and long. Another one that I have grown is this Amish paste tomato, another really good one. This is a new paste tomato that I'm trying this year. It's actually an oxheart, which oxheart tomatoes are not as long and skinny. They're a little bit more, they kind of taper down and are really kind of bulbous and wide at the bottom. But this one is supposed to be really, really big. I think they said bottom heavy oxcart fruit measures 3 inches wide and 4 inches long and weighs in just over a half a pound. So I really was interested in growing some paste tomatoes that are bigger. And so I'm really hopeful for this one. So that is a paste tomato. Then I have this paste tomato that I don't know where it came from. I must have grown it one year and it's like this, like a pink blush type colored tomato that is a paste tomato, but the flavor is delicious. I usually use them as slicers and just eat them raw, but I just call it the rose colored Roma. I don't know what it's called. I don't know what it was called, but it's another one that's in my garden that I love, that I save the seeds from because it's just delicious. I grow a lot of herbs. I love having a lot of flavor in my food. I love, you know, just having that freshness. There's a lot of things that are perennials that are out in my garden. A perennial means that it's something that will overwinter in my area, meaning when I put my thyme out there, the plant dies back to the ground and then the next year it comes back. It doesn't die completely. So I have a lot of perennials out in my gardens of herbs like thymes, oreganos, and rosemary. My rosemary I actually keep in a bucket here in my greenhouse because it doesn't do super well outside, but there's a lot of those out there. I do basils and dill and a lot of other types of herbs that I find really intriguing and that really add to my culinary, repertoire. And so I'm not really married to like certain varieties. A lot of those I do chamomile. I have sage out there. I do always have a purple basil that I grow. I usually grow a sweet basil. I really like growing a Thai basil, but not like a specific variety that this is the one that you have to do. I do also do something called holy basil that's really delicious. This year, the one thing that I am trying that's different is this, it's called Tuscany specialty basil. It is like a lettuce leaf. So if you can think about like a lettuce cup, it's that size. You can use it as a wrap. You can tear it up and put it in salads. I am dreaming of making Vietnamese spring rolls this summer and putting this in those. So stay tuned. I hope this goes well. We really enjoy kale. Kale and eggs is one of my favorite breakfasts. It's really, really fast, packed with nutrition. I do a lot of different kale. The kale, as it starts to, through the summer, not do so well, I give it to my chickens. We make kale chips. I will freeze it and put it in our freezer. There's just lots of different ways to do it. I usually grow like 3 different types of kale. One is called red Russian kale, which I didn't see in my seed box, so I might have to order that one still. I also do a dinosaur kale. And then another one that I really like is this blue curled Scotch kale. I like it too because I can put it in sauces and casseroles and stuff like that. And it's just packed with vitamins and it's something that's really good for my kids. And there's just a lot of variety. I do a lot of varieties of lettuce. Again, it's another thing that I'm not really married to one type of lettuce. Really like crunchy lettuces, so I do a lot of romaines. I do spinach in the spring. I like having a lot of different colors, so I will do some that are red and some that are purple and then the greens, but there's not specific ones that I always grow. I generally just do a large variety of different kinds of lettuce. There are a few things that don't really fit into a category, but they're just ones that I love growing or ones that I'm trying out. Like I said, every year I try to grow a lot of the things that I loved, but every year I try to usually introduce a couple new variety of things that I've never grown before. Sometimes I try it out for 1 year and it's not for me. We don't enjoy it. Sometimes I try it for 2 years and it just doesn't do good in my garden and I'll stop. But sometimes I start it and I love it. Here are 2 things. One that I started last year that will always have a place in my garden now are ground cherries. A lot of people have never heard of these. They are delicious. They look kind of like a tomatillo. They've got this husk on the outside that you don't eat. But you eat that little cherry on the inside. They do grow, the plant grows really flat on the ground and then it has these cherries underneath. They are so good. I grew a few of them last year. I will grow many more this year. I did an Aunt Molly's ground cherry. I think there's another one called Pineapple Pig. I haven't done that one yet, but I think it's called pineapple. No, it's just called pineapple. But I love these. So good, will have a place in my garden. And that I tried out a few years ago that will always have a place in my garden because we love the salsa from it is tomatillos. I don't know if it's tomatillos in general, but this variety of tomatillo really, these seeds can last through the winter here and germinate. So I generally have tomatillos that volunteer all over my garden. And what I do is I just take those volunteer plants and I relocate them to where I want my tomatillos for this year. I didn't grow any new tomatillos and I just used all those volunteer tomatillo plants and we had more tomatillos than we even know what to do with. But these are really great for salsas, salsa verde, really yummy. So I do usually try to do a couple things that are new this year. One of my new things is artichokes. I am starting this artichoke. Generally artichokes are not able to be a perennial in my area. They won't last through a winter. I am gonna heavily mulch these at the end of the season and see if I can make the plants last till the next year. But if not, these will produce a blossom or an artichoke this year. So this is something that's new for me. I just love the look of them. I think that they're beautiful. At the ranch, we generally call peas garden snacks. I try to bring peas into the house, but usually we just are out there as we're working in the garden or collecting eggs or whatever, or the kids are playing, they're running by the peas and taking a handful and munching on them. So I'm growing a lot of peas. I always do. This is a variety that I have saved the seeds of for many years. It's just a green snow pea. I don't know what the variety is, but it's just one that I've saved because I really love it. Another one that I grew last year that will have a place in my garden this year again is this sugar magnolia pea. They are beautiful. They have these purple flowers and purple pods. They're really, really sweet. This was there last year and I will grow it again. Because I liked that purple so much last year, I'm also growing another purple variety. This one's called Little Snow Pea Purple. So this one is another one. This one's from Territorial Seed Company, and I am excited about this. It again has green or purple pods, and I want to see something different than I usually see in the grocery store, so that's why I'm enjoying growing these varieties. I love peppers. I love heat. I never have been like an unbelievably successful pepper grower. I usually have some, but they never do super well. I'm changing a few things this year about the way that I'm doing my peppers. One, I'm starting my peppers much earlier than I have before. My peppers are actually already started here in my greenhouse, but I have started my pepper plants way earlier so that I think that they're gonna be a bigger plant when I actually put them out. The other thing that I think that I've done in the past is I've gotten a little too eager and planted out my pepper plants right when our last frost date ends, and I think that they really struggle in that cold at night because they love the heat. Our last frost date is the end of May. I probably will not plant my peppers out until beginning or mid-June for it to be really, really warm and really, really hot so they don't get stunted. Some of the ones that I'm growing this year, I always grow jalapeno. I don't have a particular variety that I always grow, but we love them. One of my favorite things to do with them at the end of the season, if I have a lot of them left, I will dry them in my dehydrator, and then I will put them in my spice grinder and put them in a little shaker bottle and over chili and in salsas and stuff like that. I love using this over the winter. Some of the other ones that I grow that I don't have a particular variety that I really stay true to is poblanos and cayennes. Usually I'll do those. I'll usually do some sort of sweet snacking pepper. Here are some of the other ones that I'm growing this year that are actually new to me, and I'm excited about them. This one's called a habanada. It is like a habanero, but it doesn't have the heat. Habaneros are very, very hot, but they have a really delicious sweet flavor to them as well. And the habanada basically has that delicious sweet flavor, but without the heat. So I'm growing that this year. One is arroz con pollo. I've grown this before. These are really, really delicious. If they're as hot as a habanero, if you eat the seeds, but the outer skin is not hot. So really, really delicious. This is a sugar rush peach. Another, it's got like a sweet tropical flavor. I've heard about them before. It's very smoky tasting. This is a new one for me. And this is the one that I'm most excited about. It's called a shishito pepper. And one of the YouTube channels that I watch, Roots and Refuge Farm, she grew these this last year. She blisters them in a cast iron pan and will serve them with an aioli. They were very prolific, and I'm really excited about doing the shishito peppers this year. I always grow radish. I really like radish because in the spring when I'm excited to start my garden and I need to see some sort of profit from my labors and I need to eat something out of the ground, the radishes are usually the first things that are done. I'm not really married to a specific type. I do English breakfast. I really like buying, they're called Easter egg variety, and they've got purple and red and white and pink ones all in the same packet. So I will do those, but those aren't ones that I'm like, you have to grow this variety. I think that radishes are good. I also grow squash, both winter squash and summer squash. If you're confused about what the difference is between a winter squash and a summer squash, a winter squash is just those squashes that you let come to full maturity and they allowed to get bigger and harder on the outside, like a pumpkin or like a spaghetti squash or an acorn squash. Those are squashes that are winter squashes, not meaning they grow in the winter, so they still grow in the summer, but they are growing bigger and generally you can store them. The winter squashes that I do like growing is the baby, they're called Baby Pam Pie Pumpkins. I love these because I can put them on my front steps as a decoration for the fall, but we can eat them, and they're really sweet, and since they're a smaller pumpkin, they tend to do a little better. Summer squashes though, I'm all about summer squashes. I love them. I love doing Black Beauty zucchinis. They're really, really dark green, almost black. They always have a place in my garden and very prolific. Another one that I grew that's really great to stuff and they're small and round. These are called Ronde-Denise squash. I'm not French, so I will butcher these French names, but this one is another one that I love. And then one that I've had in my garden for many years is the Mexicana. It's a hybrid, F1 hybrid zucchini, but they are shorter than a zucchini, lighter green, and a little bit fatter. The flavor of them is really, really delicious. I'm really excited about this new platform and what we have planned for this channel. Prepare yourself for at least starting off one weekly video about traditional cooking, bringing traditions back to our homestead, gardening, all of the things that we are just finding valuable for this family. There's also going to be a blog upcoming, so stay tuned for that, where I can really show you guys some of the recipes and some of the things that we do here on our ranch. Thank you so much for joining me again at Twin Peaks Traditions, where the modern family is getting back to our traditional roots. Bye.